Not too long ago, I published a review of the Starlancer Max, and save for its size and speed, I was hard pressed to find anything negative about it at all. I love the ship so much that I even gifted two of them to a couple friends of mine. It was just that perfect. Shortly after its release, it became my daily driver for nearly 2 months. I really didn't do anything without it. I even released a liveaboard challenge featuring the Max here on my YouTube channel. And in that challenge, I did everything from bunker running and armor farming to the Save Stanton mission, and even dove into ERTs and drug smuggling. All in an attempt to earn enough credits to purchase the ship before the 4.0 wipe came along. It seemed to be sufficiently suited for every aspect of the game that I wanted to delve into. But then 4.0 came out, and along with it, the new hotness, or as you'd likely know it, the Mirai Guardian. And from the day we got access to Pyro and a whole new system of lands to explore, I've been running around almost exclusively in my new heavy fighter. But about a week ago, a commenter on my Starlancer Max review video pointed out an error that I had in one of my tests. During my customary Pirate Swarm performance review, somehow my landing gear got deployed, and apparently it stayed deployed during the entire ordeal. Now ultimately, it didn't sway my overall thoughts on the Starlancer Max, but it did augment my perception of its capabilities in battle. So I wanted to make this video as a bit of a follow-up to that review, and really put the Max through the paces once again, especially now that we have enemy AI that actually fires back. Accurately, I may add. Additionally, with the recent changes, I'm going to be pushing the Starlancer Max to its limits with respect to combat, just to see how it fares with the new server and AI performance. Ultimately, my aim is to see if the ship that I grew so fond of in such a short period of time still holds up as my perfect daily driver. That's up next. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment and ask that you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. My dog said that if I hit 5k subscribers before Invictus comes around, I'd be allowed to buy myself a new ship. Please send help. Now that we've done the shameless self-plug, let's get into it. Now, I don't just do ship reviews and storytelling in Star Citizen, I actually play the game because I enjoy suffering. So I figured I'd double up on getting things done and started off my tests in the Starlancer Max by using it as the sole vehicle that would unlock ERTs on my account. Now, when I started filming this video, I already had HRTs unlocked, but little did I know, this would be, to date, the longest filming period for any video I've created. But I had to do this for science and for you guys, so you're welcome. Here's what I found. Upon leaving my Area 18 hangar for the first time, I immediately felt just how slow this ship was. It was to the point where I had to stop and try and figure out how I had actually used this thing non-stop for weeks on end. Not only is the max SEM speed of 115 meters per second bad, but this thing handles like a Buick in atmosphere and was maxing out somewhere around 80 meters per second during my vertical climb to get off planet. Things weren't off to a great start, but we had some bounties to claim, so I queued up my first HRT. And during my first play session in the Max, the mission markers were a little bugged and weren't allowing me to jump straight to them, so the first 3 hours spent doing bounties was arduous at best, and really drove home the fact that the speeds on this ship are just abysmal. Even still, whenever I eventually did arrive at my bounties location, the Starlancer Max made relatively quick work of them, even though I only had size 4 Rhino repeaters on. Bounty after bounty, contract after contract, I made my way through my reputation progress bar for probably 3 hours before deciding to take a break. Once I came back to the game, I decided it was time to up my firepower a little bit and headed over to Loreville to purchase some size 4 attritions. Once equipped, I got back to the bounties and found that the mission markers were finally allowing me to jump to them, meaning I could start making some serious progress through my reputation bar. It's worth mentioning that by this point, I was also back into the rhythm of flying a slow ship, and I found it almost relaxing that I could just turn on cruise control, set my bearing, and go take a lap around the house before I needed to be back in my seat and ready to fight. It's definitely a different pace than what I had grown accustomed to in the past month, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. My only wish at this point is that CIG would allow us to turn on our cruise control and get out of our spaceship seats, with the ship still flying in a straight line. And mark this down as my official request into the universe. If Tesla can do autopilot, why can't we? Make it happen, Chris. Anyways, with my newfound firepower, my HRT bounty started flying by, and I finished day 1 of my test with having officially unlocked VHRTs for my account. Here's what I have to say about it to this point. The Starlancer Max reminds me of what the Redeemer used to be and what the Paladin will be most likely, save of course for a few key details. It flies slowly into battle, fires off a relatively mean barrage of weaponry, and flies slowly back out of it, barely scratched, full of fuel, and ready to get on to the next order of business, but never in a hurry. Moving on to VHRTs, things went different. The ships in VHRTs are much larger than those in HRTs, so I felt the impact of their gunneries much more profoundly. We'll go with that. There were even a couple of occasions where I died because I didn't want to take the time to repair in between contracts. This never happened in 3.24. After learning my lesson a time or two, however, I found that I could deal with, at most, 2 consecutive contracts without having to repair. Keep in mind, this is with stock components except for the guns, and not using any of my missiles, which I'm not sure would have had an impact anyways, literally and figuratively. With that said, however, I was always net positive when it came to money, so if repairing after every other contract kept me moving, well then I was happy to do it. And for those of you that haven't progressed through VHRTs, I do want to point out a little tactic I developed. As you're approaching your bounty's location, it is not uncommon for the bounty target to be several kilometers away from the support craft that accompany it. And since I was there for rep and not cargo, I didn't care for taking out all of the enemy ships, I just wanted to finish the contract. So once you see the contract target, make a beeline towards it, burn boost, whatever you have to do to make it to your target well before the support ships make it to you. Because it's a lot easier to take down one largest ship than it is to take one largest ship plus 3 support vessels. Especially now that AI doesn't really seem to miss. Moving on. I kind of broke the rules a bit here and did half of my VHRTs in the Guardian just to compare which ship was easier at this stage of bounties. And well, the Guardian just wins out here. It's much faster, it does comparable damage, and if you employ the aforementioned asymmetric attack, then you can get your average time per contract down to a very low amount. On another note, the fastest contract loop that I found was on the 2 planets near ArcCorp, Leary and Walla. Oftentimes I could get 6 to 8 contracts on a single planet back to back to back, and this really saved me some time. Even with those tactics, however, it did take about 6 hours of constant bounty grinding to get this done, which I estimated out to be about 25 bounties at a little less than 15 minutes apiece when averaged out. This does factor in repairing, plus 1 or 2 logouts because of bugs. Even still, with it done, I could now test and see if the Starlancer Max, my once do-everything ship, could still hang against the highest tier bounties available. So I queued one up, and I died almost instantly. It wasn't even a contest. Fact of the matter is, with the recent improvements to AI in ships, they're just too accurate, and the Starlancer Max is too slow and too large to avoid enough incoming fire. And when you have 4 large ships with a total of 16 size 4 guns aimed right at your hull, you don't really have a shot at surviving. To make matters worse, I couldn't employ the previous tactic of my asymmetric approach, as my first ERT bounty was a hammerhead, crewed by some cracked AI that felt like they had something to prove. The battle was so one-sided that I decided to try something dubious, just to see if there was still a way to solo ERTs at all. Now before you tryhards yell at me in the comments about it being a skill issue, I'm going to go ahead and say I bet there are some sweats out there that can solo these. But I have one of those pesky little things called a job, and I also have hobbies outside of video games, and I also don't care to invest that much time into becoming that good of a pilot. It's a game after all. Also, I'd challenge you to do it in Starlancer Max, moving at half the speed of smell. Post the video and send it to me. I'd love to learn from you if you can do it, just for the funsies. But I digress. I was able to find a way to complete ERTs by myself in the Starlancer, though it isn't an honest way of doing it, so I'm inclined to not even show it here. But I will, just so you know how. It's a really simple trick that I accidentally found in Pyro. If anyone, renders your bounty target, then de-renders it, your bounty targets freeze and go inactive. Upon re-rendering them, they'll stay mostly inactive, if not entirely, and you can take them out at your leisure. So the tactic is this: approach your bounty target in nav mode. Once you get the notification that there's a contact received and verified one of them is your bounty target, go ahead and start making your way out of atmosphere, calibrate your quantum drive, and jump away to the nearest OM or POI, and then jump back to your contract target location. Everyone will be inactive and you can take them out with ease. Again, I discourage people from doing this as it just isn't an honest way to play the game, and it takes the spirit out of the gameplay loop. I also doubt this problem will be around for much longer, so don't rely on it. Instead, I recommend bringing along some friends to help you out doing ERTs. That's really how this content is supposed to be engaged with anyways. But with that said, I was satisfied that I had taken the Starlancer to its limit. I was ready to call it a day on testing the PU, but then something happened. As I was leaving a bounty on Daymar, I started getting shot at from behind. Now, I thought I was near some turrets, and I didn't bother looking behind me. I just figured I'd run away and the turrets would stop. But they didn't. Then I realized that my hull was taking damage, but my shields were still up, meaning I was getting hit by ballistics. And turrets don't fire ballistics. So I turned to see if it was an NPC, and lucky me, it was not. I was getting chased down by a player-owned Cutlass Black, which I'm going to cut him some slack and assume he was new because the loadout was stock and he definitely didn't fly like an experienced player. Additionally, he continued to press the attack after I ate through his shields in just a short burst of fire. Also, very unluckily for him, just yesterday, I was eating through Cutty Blacks and bounties for nearly 6 hours and had learned to pace them fairly well, despite how slow my ship maneuvered. Needless to say, I took him down really easily and made my way back home to Area 18. Now this would be a sensible place to end the video and draw some conclusions, but there's still one order of business I needed to attend to. Pirate Swarm. So once again, I queued up an offline match and dove in. This time, no landing gear. Here's what I found. Though the Starlancer Max is terrible in a straight line, it's sorta okay if you treat it like a slow-moving turret. Its roll and yaw aren't great, and its pitch is pretty terrible, but overall it didn't feel so bad. Right off the rip, I was able to power through early phases of Pirate Swarm just as fast, if not faster, than any of my previous test ships, and that's because when I was fighting smaller ships, I wasn't trying to play their game. I was playing my own. You see, a Starlancer Max is not going to chase anything down. If you try to, you'll be outpaced and outmaneuvered. But if you wait for the smaller, faster enemies to come to you, then you force them into your arena, and you have the shields and firepower to outlast them. So wave by wave, ship by ship, I trudged my way into battle, overcame my enemy, and trudged my way out. Hardly a scratch, and ready for more. The only issue I encountered was when I fought the Hammerhead, where I did lose a life, but ultimately came back and finished the job. Now, I didn't have time to fight the Idris that comes out, but I also never include those in my tests anyways. I definitely erred my first time going through the review of the Starlancer Max, and I'm really glad one of my viewers caught the mistake, because it gave me a chance to remember why I fell in love with this ship in the first place. It has its quirks. It's slower than anything else I own by a large margin. It can be difficult to load. The landing gear looks a little dumb, and some of the layout is questionable, but it still feels like my little, or kind of big, space RV. And yeah, it can't solo the highest tier PvE content in the game anymore, but it was never supposed to be able to do that to begin with. No ship crewed by one person is supposed to be able to take down 4 other large ships that are fully crewed. There's supposed to be a degree of difficulty when taking down enemies. That's what makes the game fun. It's the challenge. But the past week, random PvP encounter included, has shown me that the Max can still do it all, even if you have to bring some friends sometimes. And the performance that I squeezed out of it during these tests just makes me look forward to the TAC, the big brother to the Max, even more. And with that, I think I'll end the video. Be sure to leave me a like and a comment if you appreciate this video. Also remember to subscribe if you'd like more Star Citizen content. I've been slacking a little bit on publishing new videos lately because of a work deadline I'm trying to meet, but all of that should be cleared up in about a week or two. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.